Sunhouse Glacier in translation, is where I really first got it. That glacier had been receding at several hundred feet a year, which is a lot. You normally have a little bit of advance in the wintertime and a little bit of retreat in the summertime. But when you see huge amounts of change, that's outside normal behavior. There was a real sense of the glacier just coming to an end, and like this old, decrepit man just, falling into the earth and dying. It was very evocative, very emotional. As a guy who's been mountaineering for basically my whole adult life, someone who's trained in earth sciences, I never imagined that you could see features this big disappearing in such a short period of time. But when I saw that, I realized, my God, there's a powerful piece of history that's unfolding in these pictures, and I have to go back to those same spots. So I set up a whole bunch of camera positions around that glacier where I would just go back and shoot a single frame. One in April, one in October, and we would just see how the glacier changed in 6 months.
Right there where spot is, stand right there. That's exactly where the ice was, right there. Right, over?
Correct.
That glacier had changed so much that, I'm not kidding, for like 3 hours we stood there looking at the prints of 6 months ago, looking at the glacier going, we must be wrong, we can't be in the right places. It appeared to be from over there. And when I saw those, the lights went off for me. I realized the public doesn't want to hear about more statistical studies, more computer models, more projections. What they need is a believable, understandable piece of visual evidence, something that grabs them in the gut. So I created this project called the Extreme Ice Survey, or EIS. The initial goal was to put out 25 cameras for 3 years, and they would shoot every hour as long as it was daylight. We would download the cameras every so often and turn those individual frames into video clips that would show you how the landscape was changing. I thought that basically you could just buy all this time-lapse equipment off the shelf, slam it together, and put it out there. I was so naive about that. There was a custom computer that needed to be built, and there were 1,000 little engineering details that needed to be worked out, and a lot of trial and error because people hadn't built this stuff before. And it was clear to me it would have to be a team effort.
I wasn't that into photography, but I talked him into letting me come up here and have a look at the system because I was curious, and I really wanted to do whatever I could to get my foot in the door.
Spav the field assistant in Iceland.
You ready? As ready as I can be.
These are just really attractive because I think they're more picturesque and they're still big glaciers.
Jason had a deep, deep well of experience about Greenland's glaciers, about Greenland logistics, about what the glaciers were doing. Tad's a glaciologist. He's the grandfather, the godfather of the knowledge base about those glaciers in Alaska.
The scope and the scale of EIS is bigger than any other project since I've known him. They would work all day in our little, used to be our garage, turned into a workshop, till sometimes 11, 12 o'clock at night.
James sent me a gear list of things that I had never heard. I mean, ice axes and crampons, all of this technical climbing gear that I had never used before. I remember thinking, I never want to do ice climbing or ice-related stuff. It's dangerous, I'm gonna die. But of course, I still went with James to Iceland.
Good. Good.
I'm just saying, Jesus Christ. I'm just emphasizing how bad the weather is.
Yeah, I don't need it. I get it.
The essence of the camera systems is based on putting really delicate electronics in the harshest conditions on the planet.
They have to withstand hurricane force winds.
Negative 40-degree temperatures.
It's not the nicest environment for technology to be sitting out in.
Whatever the dangers of that boulder are, that's a better spot than this is. But we found a place to hide the camera. That's the good news. The bad news is we've got a major engineering project to try and get that thing anchored and supported. This thing is loose. Look how soft this stuff is. Yeah, it's got to be this section right here. The other way around. Rock. This is fantastic. Look at this. It's exactly what we wanted. Okay. Well, here we go. The first eyeballs on the glacier, finally. Let's see what a couple years brings to us.
We installed 5 cameras in total on that trip.
After that, we went on to Greenland.
When glaciers break these gigantic icebergs off into the ocean, it's called calving, C-A-L-V-I-N-G. Ever since glaciers have entered the ocean, hundreds of thousands of years ago, ice has always calved off. But what we're seeing now is the Greenland ice sheet thinning out and dumping ever more ice and water into the ocean. Okay, good. Yep, right up here. It's sort of like doing a portrait of people. You know, Richard Avedon and Irving Penn spent their entire careers doing portraits of faces, essentially, and found endless variation and endless beauty and endless magic in those faces. And for me, that's the same thing as what's going on here. You know, you feel this tension between this huge, enduring power of these glaciers and their fragility. You know, they came from a great and impassive place, and now they're crumbling into these tiny little blocks of ice going off into the ocean. It's crazy.
My first trip to Greenland, we were setting up one of the cameras at Store Glacier. When we got there, we saw this really bizarre-looking peninsula just kind of perched out at the front of the calving face of the glacier, where the glacier ends.
This thing is going to break off all summer long, man. Look at this. Those peninsulas are just a matter of days, at most a couple of weeks. But
It was huge. It was 5 football fields long, 1,500 feet long, and about 300 feet above the surface of the water. As we're setting up the cameras, we also set up a video camera and had it pointed right there at that peninsula, and we just had it rolling, just in case.
Oh my God, giant crack just formed. See that whole island, it's going away. There it goes, man.
We were there for just a 1 hour period of time and absurdly, somehow, fortunately, captured an event that seldom is caught on film.
This is really big stuff happening right under our noses right now. But I feel like time is clicking, you know, and we need to get these cameras out here. Okay, onward.
The logistics of things are just like crazy. It reminds you how far he's willing to take an idea.
Heads up, heads up! Tight, tight, tight. This is tonight's dinner, I just found out.
Eight, 7, 6, 5.
This is the way to travel, my friend. We ended up installing about a dozen cameras in Greenland, 5 in Iceland, 5 in Alaska, and 2 in Montana. Frankly, I can't believe that, and we actually managed to pull this off. You know, about 20 years ago, I was a skeptic about climate change. I thought it was based on computer models. I thought maybe there was a lot of hyperbole that was turning this into an activist cause. But most importantly, I didn't think that humans were capable of changing the basic physics and chemistry of this entire huge planet. It didn't seem probable. It didn't seem possible. And then I learned about the record that's in the ice cores, the history of ancient climate that was embedded in those cores, and the story that the glaciers were telling.
The Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are these giant domes of ice that preserve climate records very much like tree rings. Snow is added to the top, turns into ice, and ice core scientists can drill holes through the ice sheets and pull out a core and examine not only the ice, but also bubbles of ancient air that are trapped in the ice. By looking at the chemistry of the ice, we can learn about past temperature, and by looking at the air, we can actually measure the carbon dioxide content. And one of the things that we learn is that past temperature and carbon dioxide vary together. They go up together, they go down together. And over the last 800,000 years or so, atmospheric carbon dioxide was never higher than about 280 parts per million, until we started adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. And now it's about 390 parts per million. And that's about 40% higher than it was when carbon dioxide was only varying for natural reasons. But now we're headed for 500 parts per million or more.
That pace is 100 to 1,000 times greater than the pace at which things have changed by themselves naturally. The amazing thing to me is that we're already seeing impacts because the change already has been so small, right? It's been 0.8 degrees C, about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, since 1850 or so. And yet we've seen so much stuff, crazy stuff going on already.
What counts to me more than the notion of climate changing is that the air is changing. The air that we live in, the air that sustains us, the basic physics and chemistry of that air is changing. This is about the stuff that you and I breathe, and that affects everything in the agriculture, in the water supply, in the biology of all the plants and animals around us.
Plants and animals are already going extinct. They're going extinct 100 times faster now than they did 1,000 years ago. And as the climate continues to warm, we're going to lose more and more and more species because we're going to have more surprises happening. We are going to have a mass extinction event that could happen within the next 200 to 300 years. Mass extinction event means that we lose half or maybe 3/4 of the number of species that we have on the planet. Are we going to be losing the plants that clean our water, the plants that clean our air? If there's no pollinators out there to pollinate, then we're going to have to do it by hand. And they're already doing that in China, having to go out and pollinate their crops by hand.
In the last 20 years, we've lost close to 20% of the forest area in Arizona and New Mexico, and that's high mortality in those forest areas. We have seen increasing in the length of the fire season by more than 2 months. Larger fires in the western United States in the last 20 years. And we've seen hotter fires, more extreme fires burning. It's not just by chance that I'm seeing many rare events happening all in sequence. You know, there's a reason for that. We're seeing extraordinary changes in our environment.
Munich Re is the world's largest reinsurance company, and our business model is to provide insurance for the insurance companies. As Munich Re is a major reinsurer for natural perils, natural catastrophes, we need to know the risks as best as we can. We have discovered some trends in the number and in the losses natural perils have caused. And interestingly, for the weather-related events, our activities, primarily greenhouse gas emissions, are already contributing to more intense and more events. It cannot be explained by just better reporting. It has to be explained by changes in the atmospheric conditions.
Imagine a baseball player on steroids who steps up to the plate and hits home run. Can you attribute that home run to his taking steroids? Well, steroids occur naturally in very small amounts in your system, but by adding just a little bit to those steroids, you can change your background physical state and increase your chances for enhanced performance. And that's exactly what happens in the climate system. Greenhouse gases occur in very small amounts, but by increasing that just a little bit, you change the background state of the system and make it much more susceptible to increased extremes.
If you had an abscess in your tooth, would you keep going to dentist after dentist until you found a dentist who said, don't worry about it, leave that rotten tooth in? Or would you pull it out because most of the other dentists told you you had a problem? That's sort of what we're doing with climate change. We'll be arguing about this for centuries. We're still arguing about a minor thing called evolution, a minor thing about whether man actually walked on the moon. We don't have time. look out that window at that seawater with icebergs floating around in there, and you realize we go in that, we'll have 5 minutes of physical function, and in 10 minutes we're dead.
The fire brigade will be on standby in case we need their help.
En af deltagerne kravene er avanceret, og jeg kan se, at de kommer med vognen. Det er godt. Ja, det er det.
He needs to do his adventures. That's what makes him who he is. That's who the man is. That's who I love. That's who I married. Do I wish sometimes that it was closer and he would come home at night at 5 o'clock? As a wife, yes. As a human being, it needs to continue, so.
He's on this never-ending quest for something. He's just going and hoping that something that he's doing is taking him in the right direction. And I think that EIS is it. He's looking to make a global, worldwide impact. I've never seen him so passionate about a project before.